Mr. Nafi.
Please take your seats. It is not only about next time, inshallah. Please take your seats. There are seats in the left front. Please take the seats in front. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah. I am the secretary of the Bangladeshi Crisis Group, a coalition of like-minded individuals. I am stepping in for Dr. Kamal Halbawi. Dr. Kamal Halbawi is the chair of this committee of the Bangladesh Crisis Group. Unfortunately, he can't be there for the last few weeks, but he sends his apology and a message to everyone. I shall read that first, then I shall pass on to my co-chair, Dr. Muhammad Halbawi, is this. I hope, however, you are all in good spirits, despite the oppression, the injustice, and the unfairness in Bangladesh. Halbawi, chair of the Bangladeshi Crisis Group, dated today. Let me quickly explain to you the aims of tonight's event. The program is this. Those of you who are aware of the situation in Bangladesh, you know it warrants a serious investigation to the issue of Bangladesh. Tower Hamlets is perhaps the largest in this country. And what happens in London, likewise what happens in Egypt, affects Egyptian Muslims in Britain, Arabs, non-Arabs in one part of the world affects you in the other part of the world. This is why we cannot be separated from what happens elsewhere. I stand before you as a Bangladeshi, yes. I was born in Bangladesh, but my faith teaches me not to be a nationalist, to be concerned about the issues of Bangladesh. What is transpiring in Bangladesh?
I can tell. I've never been to Bangladesh, but I've been talking to my friends who live in Tower Hamlets and around London, who have family and friends in Bangladesh, talking to them for the last 10 years, and often there have been problems. This is not a new phenomena. There have been problems for a long, long time, and I think there has been great patience here and around London and around the country. And I think we've obviously reached a tipping point. The situation is now so severe that many of you who up until now have chosen to remain quite silent on the issue, you feel enough is enough. And I can understand that. And I want to begin tonight by offering some real positive encouragement. We are really at the end of 10 years now, 10 years of the war on terror. I think there's a wide understanding that it hasn't worked. And I think this is a basis on which we can all take some encouragement. 10 years of the war on terror where we've forgotten what I think is good good counter-terrorism and good policing. So let me just remind you, of course, I can only do this by referring to my new book. Many of you are featured in it, Countering Al-Qaeda in London, Police and Muslims in Partnership. And this is a signal for how we can go back to doing good work that doesn't stigmatise politically active Muslims who just want to go about their business. So the best kind of policing and counter-terrorism, I argue, and I know many other former police officers in this country and currently serving police officers would agree with me. It keeps the narrowest possible focus on real terrorists, real political violence, and it does not stigmatise, it does not demonise, it does not criminalise the legitimately political active. So it's no coincidence that many of you here who are politically active, of course you're regularly attacked in sections of the media. You don't need me to tell you which sections of the media to go to. But that's perhaps all you suffer. And others, like myself, are willing partners. I noticed, for example, recently when the English Defence League came to this borough, or attempted to come to this borough, to intimidate good, honest Muslims that they think are extremist, because they read the same sections of the media. I noticed that the police here, my former colleagues, police officers in Tower Hamlets, they applauded. They said that the work of Islamic Forum Europe, stewarding, youth workers, they said this was outstanding work. And this is the message, really. This is the message of partnership. Now, what has this got to do with the situation in Bangladesh? Well, it's got precisely this to do. I think it's a very important connection. This is an opportunity now to export an ethical foreign policy, ethical policing back. What has the UK exported to Muslim countries over the last 100 years? It's not always a happy list of exports. And what I'm arguing, and I think there may be an article on Al Jazeera online that expands this argument appearing shortly, partnership policing, policing by consent. I've interviewed many police officers from countries like Tunisia, countries like Egypt, where, their job is torture. Well, that's what they get paid to do. Possibly now, after the Arab Spring, perhaps they have to learn what we learn in this country, policing by consent, policing with your communities, encouraging legitimate political protest. If you suppress legitimate political process, well, you end up causing political violence and terrorism. These are issues that should be well understood. So there's an opportunity for police, there's an opportunity for government to say to Bangladesh, look, this torture, this disregard for human rights, this encouraging police to act like the Stasi in former communist countries like East Germany, this has to stop. And I think we can be quite robust in our demands of our government. We know that this is the wrong kind of policing. Many of you know it because many of your friends and family are on the receiving end of it. Not only is it unjust, and no doubt, there are lawyers who can speak more accurately and in more detail about that. But I'm here to say that we have a very strong basis to insist that our government makes demands of Bangladesh, their counterparts in government, and offers them what I describe in my book, which is ethical policing, which means an end to torture, which means an end to the suppression of human rights, and as a result, many of your relatives who have never ever met a police officer that they can trust will be able to learn trust, learn respect, and in the future work together. Thank you for your attention.
I wish to apologise. I really need to thank you all for coming here today, because I believe you all walked about half a mile from Waterloo to come here. True? How many of us walked from Waterloo to this event? More than few. I think everyone, more or less everyone. Unfortunately, when we booked the event at the Waterloo, there was some political interference, pressure applied. but also from our side, there was some lacking in booking the proper process, which is why they both resulted in the cancellation of this event. This is why we had to relocate here. But we are grateful to you for coming here in such huge numbers. Thank you very much. One other point I wish to make before I introduce the next speaker. This event is not a party political meeting. This is why in the list you will not see any members or anyone from any Bangladeshi political parties. Everyone here are independent from different backgrounds, but it's not a political meeting. Let me quickly introduce our next speaker. I have the pleasure of introducing Brother Muazzam Beg. Many of you heard of his name, Muazzam Beg. He was detained in Guantanamo Bay for a number of years for being innocent, for being a Muslim. You know, he had done nothing, but he was detained there and tortured there for a number of years. It took him years to clear his name. And alhamdulillah, at the end, he did clear his name. He's out now. He's got a book which tells the story, the suffering he went through. And today, he's come, despite being very busy. He just come back from Libya a few days ago. But he's taken the trouble to come and talk to us today. And he needs to leave straight after speaking now, inshallah. So, Muazzam Beg.
آله وصحبه ومن والاه اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا وأنت تجعل الحزن إذا شئت سهلا. My brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Part of the work that I have been doing by the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has just taken me to Libya and Tripoli just last week, where I met with many former prisoners who were held in the dungeons of Abu Salim prison, where before over 1,200 people had been massacred in that prison by Gaddafi and his followers. In Tunisia, I met prisoners, some who were held in Guantanamo Bay, others who were held in Tunisia itself, and again were tortured and abused and beaten for years and decades, before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it so that these people, these very prisoners now, are parts of the leading opposition in those countries. I want to give you just the example of Libya in particular, because what you're seeing happening in Bangladesh are the birth pangs. You can see, for example, that the most demonized organizations in the world are the Muslim organizations. Everywhere you go, east, west, Islamic countries or not. And here you see in Bangladesh, it's the Jamaat Islami that is being demonized, that its activists are being imprisoned. Why? The reason is the same reason why Bin Ali captured, tortured, abused and beat the people from a Nahda party. The same reason why Gaddafi imprisoned and tortured the people from the Islamic group there. The same reason why Hosni Mubarak tortured and beat the people from the Islamic movements there. The fear of legitimate political opposition that has tangible abilities to challenge the status quo. I.e., they are afraid. They are afraid of what the people carry in their hearts. And what you carry in your heart is very difficult to dislodge by a stick or by a punch or a kick. And we know in our history as Muslims, when they put the burning hot stones on Bilal radiallahu anhu, when they whipped him and they asked him to say the word of disbelief, he said, then they asked him, who is your Lord? He said, Ahad, Ahad, Allahu Ahad. And this, my brothers and sisters, is something that they cannot understand. The power of Islam in the hearts of the believers lets them say what Yusuf alayhi salam said, Rabbi, as-sijnu ahabbu ilayya mimma yad'unani ilay. Oh Allah, my Lord, prison is more beloved to me than that which they call me to, and this is what they're afraid of. And that's why they know that the Islamic parties that you see now are taking their rightful place in the Muslim and Arab world. You can see in Libya, the Islamic parties, the brothers there themselves who were renditioned, who were tortured, handed over by the CIA and the MI5 and MI6, handed over to Gaddafi to be tortured, are now leading the country. Imagine this. Imagine this. This is what they are afraid of. Afraid of the idea not even to let you speak. For to speak the word would be too much for their ears to handle. And this is why they resort to torture, to abuse, to detention without trial, to the removing of the rule of law, where the law applies for everyone except you because you believe in Islam. And you believe in it as an ideology that will bring good to the world. I want to give you the example also, because we're talking about what's happening in Bangladesh and what's happened to the brothers and sisters there. That there are cases there in Bangladesh where even lawyers, representing those people who are in detention have been tortured and beaten and killed. Lawyers, people who are applying the law and nothing but the law, even they are not safe. So this is a good message in one sense, in that the opposition parties, you'll know that the more they oppress a people, the more you recognize the truth is on their side. I want to give you an example, though, of some cases here in the United Kingdom. Part of my work since my return from Guantanamo has been campaigning for those people detained without trial and charge around the world. And it has led us to the case of some Bangladeshi brothers who themselves, British Bangladeshis, who were beaten, abused and tortured in Bangladesh with British complicity. These statements from these brothers we have taken and handed over to British politicians and to British judges to let them know that it's okay, on the one hand, to say Bangladesh is a country where torture is carried out. But what onus is there upon the British government here to point out and to recognize what is being done, and how is it possible that the British intelligence service could be taking benefit from people being tortured in Bangladesh? How is this possible when we claim here to be the bastions and the protectors of the rules of law? We have in this country, ordered by David Cameron, an inquiry into the actions of British intelligence in complicity in torture of their own citizens, which includes, my brothers and sisters, Bangladeshi citizens, Bangladeshi origin British citizens. And this is why it's so important for all of us to remember here that the rule of law that they claim to apply across the board must be applied on all and not selectively. Because when they use this process to dehumanize us and say these are the Islamic parties, Islamic party means standing up when you fall from your chair. Islamic party means that they must have some kind of relationship with Al-Qaeda. They must be extremists, terrorists, fundamentalists, people to be afraid of. That's the narrative used everywhere. That's what the different parties, even in Bangladesh, will use to say that they are all the same. That's what Gaddafi said. Remember when Gaddafi was being, the rebels came out, he said they're all Al-Qaeda. The same thing with Mubarak, the same thing with Ben Ali, the same thing with Bush. And in the end, you can see that there's a chain that they're trying to produce. It's based on the words of Goebbels, who was the propaganda minister of Hitler. He said, if you repeat a lie often enough, the bigger the lie, the more people will believe it. And that's what's happening. They want to paint us with all the same brush. But my brothers and sisters, what's crucial right now is that for those people who believe and support the Islamic movements in whatever way or form they do, now is the time to stand strong and firm, not to buckle. Because they have tried every possible use and avenue in the same way as they used against the Prophet ﷺ. Boycotting, demonizing, alienating, imprisonment, torture, removal of rights, and killing. Every technique they have applied. But for us as Muslims, we should stand up firm for justice, for what's true, never bow our head except to Allah, and let these people know that we are a force to be reckoned with, and the evidence for this is in the streets of the Muslim world that you can see that Bangladesh is an integral part of. You don't have to be Arab to be part of the Arab Spring, because the spring that you see has its reverberations all around the world. And inshallah, I pray that this, what is happening in Bangladesh, what you can see just from the evidence of the numbers of people attending here, that this is a vital issue and one that your community should support. You should support the oppressed wherever they are, lest one day you become oppressed and nobody supports you. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين وجزاكم الله خير.
Jazakallah khair, Brother Muazzam. Our next speaker is a specialist in international criminal law. He visited Bangladesh 5 times, and he's been prevented. The last time he tried to visit Bangladesh, he's been prevented from doing so. Do you know why? Because they don't want anyone to expose them. They don't want anyone to find out what's happening over there. So please welcome Toby Cadman.
Thank you very much. I think this is the biggest audience I've spoken to, and it really does show the importance of these questions. I hope my voice holds out for what I want to say. I've been travelling throughout Europe and the United States the last 2 weeks, speaking on behalf of those that I represent, which has resulted in me losing my voice on a number of occasions. So I hope I'm able to carry it through. I wanted to start by apologising to you all, because I'm the one responsible for the change of venue. It appears that I've become so infamous in what I say that the powers that be wanted to prevent me from speaking. So luckily we've been able to move the location so that I can actually say what it is I want to say. I'm a lawyer and I represent a case, not a cause. I'm not a political activist. I have to represent the interests of my clients to the best of my ability, and that's what I do. Sometimes it's controversial, but that's the job. What I've tried to explain is that I don't oppose the tribunal in Bangladesh. It's important that Bangladesh, as a nation, brings an end to this particular chapter and brings an end to impunity. It has an obligation under international law to do this, but it also has an obligation under international law to do it properly, to bring those responsible for having committed such heinous crimes to justice in a fair judicial process. It is my view, and I've expressed this view on a number of occasions, that this is not happening. The international community needs to wake up to this. This is a very, very serious problem, and this is a very dangerous precedent in the making. I've tried to express that on a number of occasions in various public addresses I've made, but the response from the government generally is that I'm only trying to frustrate this process by making political speeches and lobbying. Well, I am a lobbyist. I'm lobbying on behalf of my clients to have a fair trial. That's not an offence, and that's not in breach of my professional code of ethics, despite what a number of individuals in Bangladesh have said. I will continue to fight to ensure that my clients, the leaders of the Jamaat-e-Islami party, have a fair trial. One of them was charged today in circumstances that I consider, as a member of the defence team, to be against general principles of international law. We have argued these points before the tribunal, and disappointingly, most of the arguments that we've raised have been rejected. The general response is to shut down any form of opposition, any form of media comment. Some of you may have heard today that David Bergman, a British journalist, has been cited for contempt of court for comments that he's made. Some of you may be aware that not so long ago in London, I addressed a conference very similar to this, although I was addressing a group of judges and lawyers, where I expressed some of these concerns. My record, or my comments, were expunged because of what I said. Now, I had two British High Court judges, who spoke in defence of what I had said, arguing of freedom of speech, that I'm perfectly entitled to make critical comments towards a process I don't consider to be just. But my comments were stricken from the record nonetheless by the organisation. As the colleague who introduced me just said, I tried to travel to Bangladesh in August of this year. I've travelled to Bangladesh on 5 previous occasions without any complication. But on this particular occasion, I was stopped at the border and told I couldn't enter. No visa would be issued. I was told, no official decision was given, but I was told it was because I was representing war criminals. Now, official statements have now been given. The fact that I was to speak at a seminar in Bangladesh, and it simply could not be allowed because I'd criticised the tribunal in the past and I was going to do it again. And that was the reason given for barring me access. Now, what I've been attempting to do is to gather as much support and momentum as possible so that these trials are monitored fairly by the international community. I would hope that organisations such as the Council of Europe, the European Union, will monitor these trials to ensure that they're fair, as it seems unlikely that our defence team will be given access to our clients. As the other speakers have said, Bangladesh is entering a very, very dangerous period. It's not just the tribunal. Now, I'm not here to speak about the wider political issues because that's not what I'm instructed to do. My job is to represent those currently detained and those facing allegations. And as I've said, I will continue to do that. But that also involves discussing the wider political issues, the complete breakdown in democracy, the barring of freedom of expression and freedom of assembly. Now, the wider political issues, that falls on the responsibility of a large number of international organisations. That's not for me as an individual, as a lawyer. And what I've been doing recently is calling on these organisations to engage on a diplomatic level with Bangladesh to resolve some of these problems before it transcends into a humanitarian crisis. I think we're on the brink of that right now. Some of the other speakers have already mentioned that. But as I say, those are issues that need to be addressed by the international community. This government in particular, my government, needs to step up and recognise that there is a serious problem. So, as I've said in numerous speeches, and I will repeat again, I do not oppose the tribunal. Bangladesh as a nation is required to do this under international law. It's required to do this in compliance with international norms and international practices. I sincerely hope that the tribunal will change its position, that it will conduct these proceedings with due process in mind, and that those currently in custody awaiting trial will be given a fair chance to defend themselves. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Toby. The reason why the brother was trying to fix the camera is because this is being streamed live as we speak via the BCG website. So if anyone at home listening through Moss Radio or anything else, if you go to BangladeshCrisisGroup.com, you can listen to this live at the moment. Up next is Oliver McTurnan. Oliver McTurnan is a well-known academic researcher, figure in the community. He's the founder and director of Forward Thinking. His specialization is in conflict resolution. So he travels the world, especially Middle East, try to help people reconcile. So I'd like to invite now Oliver McTurnan to say a few words about the situation in Bangladesh. Oliver.
Thank the Bangladesh Crisis Group for bringing our attention to what's happening in Bangladesh. I was totally unaware, and I say that ashamedly, totally unaware of the suppression, daily suppression of human rights until I got the invitation to come to this meeting. And that forced me to do a little bit of research, look at it, and what I discovered I was horrified by. Just one little statistic. It said that this Rapid Action Battalion, RAB, has killed over 700 people in operations. And there's been no inquiry, no attempt to put it right. Numerous people have been tortured in prison. No inquiry, no attempt to put it right. Human rights activists, workers have been tortured, have been harassed. No attempt to put it right. Now, these are outside organisations looking at the facts and trying to draw our attention to it. Sadly, that has not been picked up sufficiently by the international media. Some years ago, when I studied human rights, one read a lot of arguments put that human rights were relative, that they were not universally applicable, and sometimes culture, belief, and so forth ran against a universal declaration of human rights. One had only to go to the streets of Cairo and Tunis to see that lie exposed. Because the people I spoke to, and I did go to Cairo and Tunis, and the people wanted two things. First of all, respect for them as a human person, and secondly, the right, the freedom to determine their future. They sent a message to the world that human rights are something we share in common. And therefore, no matter where we come from, what our culture, what our geographical location. And therefore, what's happening now in Bangladesh must be and should be a deep concern for us all. Because it's like a seamless garment. You can't ignore what stain is on part of that garment. It affects us all. I'm pressed to go to another meeting, and I almost contacted Abdullah earlier today to say, look, I really am going to have to excuse myself. But when I got the message that the meeting had been cancelled at the Water Lily, I felt I had to be here. Because if we don't stand up for human rights elsewhere, we will soon learn that there will be a limitation on our own rights. Thank you for your attention, and I wish every success.
Speaker, Farouk Murad, he is the Secretary General of the Muslim Association of Britain, Muslim Council of Britain, an umbrella organization for more than 500 affiliates here in Britain. And he is well known to all of us. He's been here many times speaking on this platform. So please, you are here. Okay, please.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الكريم وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. My very dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. What's happening in Bangladesh for a while now is an insult to the Ummah. Bangladesh is a Muslim country. It's a Muslim country, a great Muslim country. And what is happening in Bangladesh, let me also say, is worse than what's happening in Libya and Arab countries. And I'll tell you why I say this. I say this because what dictators do, well-known dictators, who are there to preserve their own rule, their family rule, that's one thing. But when that very crime is committed in the name of democracy, that is a threat to civilization. That is a threat to our civilization, our rights, and should be taken note of by not just Muslims, but every democracy in the world. It becomes their duty and their obligation to prevent the violation of human rights, the gross, flagrant violation of human rights. We've seen the statistics in front of us. The papers have been circulated. We've seen the images and photographs. These are not the images or photographs you expect from a democracy, done by a government which has public mandate. So you wonder, what is the problem? Why opposition is being brutalized, arrested, dying in detention, And as Oliver highlighted, the kind of statistics that we are seeing is something that cannot be allowed to go on and tolerated. We must, as citizens, as human beings, must stand up. But as Muslims, we must take action against this. Because whilst we may be seeing Arab Spring in the Arab world, people asking for votes, people asking for democracy, people asking for freedom, what message is Bangladesh giving to these people for their aspirations, for their hopes? This is the kind of democracy, this is how democracy functions. That must be the message that we must stop. It is detrimental for the kind of revival that we are seeing in Muslim lands, where Muslim citizens, in our journey which perhaps began 100 years ago, I would say we are in a very critical juncture of that journey. 100 years ago, most of Muslim world lay under the colonial rule. Then our forefathers struggled, gave sacrifices with their life and blood, and liberated their countries. We had liberation from foreign rule. But then we had rules by puppets, autocratic rulers, dictators, one-party rules. That's what's been going on in Muslim countries. We never had true liberation, true independence, true freedom. But since this Arab Spring, and I suppose on the 10th anniversary of War on Terror, what we are seeing is that Muslim world is saying no more dictatorships, no more puppets, no more rulers who are there simply to help themselves, not their countries and their people. And it is this aspiration with which we must stand. And when we stand for this aspiration, we must realize what is happening in Bangladesh is a real threat to that aspiration. And therefore, it is not just a concern for Bangladeshis. It is something we must all be concerned about. Bangladeshi, non-Bangladeshi, Muslim, non-Muslims. The violence in Bangladesh is against all communities, all kind of people, not just one community. What we must all stand for today, to see that our prosperity, progress returns to our countries, which is what Islam stands for, is that we must make sure our countries are governed by rule of law, there's transparent and just governments, and we strengthen democratic institutions. And strengthening democracy is not just one-party rule. It's not about eliminating opposition, but it is about having functioning, credible opposition in our countries. It's about having independent judiciary. It's not the reports that the figures are coming are not from the reports of the opposition parties in Bangladesh. These figures are coming from credible international institutions. The one report I looked at is from the United States State Department report on the human rights in Bangladesh, which has categorically has highlighted all the issues that we have heard about, all the problems, all the crises that we have heard about today in a few talks that we have had. Bangladesh has a great future. It's a great Muslim nation. It's the fourth largest country, young population. But in order to achieve this wonderful future, we must stop what's going on today in Bangladesh.
Just for rushing you, we have quite a few speakers to get through and we have very limited time, which is why I'm asking you to stick to 5 minutes if possible. Just want to make one point. I've been given a sheet to say there are over 15 to 16 mainly ethnic media channels and newspapers covering this event, but very few mainstream. Very few mainstream. What you see in front of me right now, what you're seeing here, this is the pulse of the community. Unfortunately, most time, all the time, it doesn't get reported accurately or properly. So I'm really urging the mainstream media, if you listen to this, please report this big congregation here and what has been said by the many speakers. It is important to get the message across. Our next speaker is someone from Bosnia, a country which is war-torn for many years, where people have suffered tremendously. where some of us from this very room went many a times to visit the people in Srebrenica and other places. We have with us Imam Hazim Fazlik, a Bosnian Imam who lives in Birmingham as an interfaith worker. He'll relate to you the suffering he experienced in Bosnia and how some of the similarities you can see today in Bangladesh. So Imam Hazim Fazlik.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسولنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. When Brother Abdullah sent me an invitation to attend this event, I had other obligations, so I was thinking whether to come over from Birmingham, but when he sent me all details what is happening in Bangladesh at the moment, I couldn't say no. I couldn't say no because I know what Muslim community and Muslim communities across the world did for Bosnia and what they have been doing even now for Bosnian communities, whether in Bosnia, whether here in Britain. And just 2 years ago, this Bangladeshi community or this center here supported our center in Birmingham, Bosnian Cultural Center, to refurbish our mosque. So I'm here on behalf of the Bosnian community to support this event. I would like to start this my discussion actually with my own Bosnian experience. In 1992, during 1992, the war was raging in Bosnia and Herzegovina in various parts. And we hope that that conflict or that war will end in a few weeks or a few months. But it didn't. Then we were expecting that somebody from abroad, somebody from Europe or from America will come and intervene, will come and save us Muslims from Serbian forces. I remember very well in 1992, in the end of the 1992, Bill Clinton became president of the United States of America. And we were cheerful at that time because in his pre-election speeches, he promised that he will intervene in Bosnia and he will send his troops to Bosnia to bring peace. But our hopes were in vain because it took another 3 years of killing, of suffering and expelling people from various towns and cities in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Why am I telling this to you? I'm pretty much sure that today a child, a woman, or a man in Bangladesh is waiting and expecting that somebody from the international community will come and help Bangladeshi people, as we in Bosnia did. I'm pretty much sure that 700 people are a small number comparing with what is going to happen if we do not react now, today, and in near future. It is interesting how ruling establishments throughout the history justifying oppression of their own people. It is interesting even today how Arab leaders or heads of states are justifying killing, imprisoning, and crack down on the protesters these days. They're just saying that they are restoring order, they are making peace, they are restoring order in their societies. The Holy Quran describes this state of affairs in the beginning of the Surah Al-Baqarah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. وإذا قيل لهم لا تفسدوا في الأرض قالوا إنما نحن مصلحون. When it is said to them, do not make mischief on the earth, they are saying, no, we are peace builders. And when you see heads of states and regimes in various Muslim countries, what are they saying? They're saying, no, these are terrorists, these are protesters, and they are collaborating with foreign elements, and they are just making mischief. We are those who are making and restoring order. And the Quran continues, أَلَا إِنَّهُمْ هُمُ الْمُفْسِدُونَ وَلَكِنْ لَا يَشْعُرُونَ. Verily, they are making mischief, but they feel not. But they feel not. How interesting these 2-3 words are for our reality today. Because these heads of states and these representatives of regimes, they don't feel the sufferings and the killings and the situation of their ordinary citizens. They don't feel that because they live so distantly from them. They live in their palaces and their places, and they don't see the sufferings of their own people. That's how we see that Quran say they feel not. What they are doing, they are imprisoning people, they are constructing politically motivated cases and imprisoning people and executing people. However, they often forget that injustice cannot be tolerated. In one of al-ahadith, one of the sayings of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, it says that God will tolerate disbelief, but God will not tolerate injustice. Accordingly, I can see that these regimes will be gone soon. What needs to be done? I don't know at this point, but I'm expecting some answers this evening, and I'm expecting some advice from the organizers of this event to agree about future steps and to see whether we can support financially or lobbying or writing to policymakers, to anybody. We will do that. According to Islamic tradition, Muslims are one body. When one part hurts, the whole body feels pain. So I personally feel the pain of those who suffer in Bangladesh. But at the same time, I'm here to express my support for Bangladesh, not only as a Muslim, but as a human being. And for that reason, we should motivate and inspire all people of goodwill to support the case of Bangladeshi people. Finally, modern technology is blessing in a way today, but also modern technology gives us information, news, and we know more about events which are happening around the world. At the same time, the modern technology makes us responsible to react what is happening in those corners of the world. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Azim, just to let you know that, alhamdulillah, we have a lot of sisters upstairs listening as well to us, because as you can see, the hall is packed, alhamdulillah. Our next speaker, being a Syrian activist himself, fled from Syria more than 30 years. I think he feels what you feel. We hear every day about what's happening in Syria. A brutal regime, dictatorship, killing its own people. It is the same everywhere, unfortunately, in our Muslim world. So please welcome Walid Safour, the Director of Syrian Human Rights Committee.
Alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Dictators behave in the same manner, regardless to their continent, race, color, and gender. They crack down on their people for the same reason, for monopolizing power and depriving citizens from their natural, legal, and human rights. They regard land as their farm and people as their cattle. They are ready to stamp anyone who challenges them for their own right as a human being, as a terrorist. Courts of all sorts are ready to be formed under emergency legislation to sentence him or her to the worst punishment in prison. To undermine the dignity of human being, the despotic practices of the Bangladeshi authorities, however alarming and bring utmost concern, but should be faced immediately by a campaign of awareness among our fellow Bangladeshi citizens. They should know their rights. They shouldn't be silent. They should demand and request their rights. Secondly, there should be a worldwide campaign among the human rights groups, including the United Nations and everywhere, and in the Muslim world as well. I'll give you an example. We at Syria endured a dictatorship and a family rule for 47 years under Assad family rule. The Syrian people suffered all sorts of execution, prolonged jail, deprivation of all kinds of rights. Now people are uprising for their rights. In the past, we have paid 100,000 victims in the 80s and 90s in the mass massacres in Hama and Tadmur and in jails. And now, during 7 months, we have paid at least 5,000 people shot in the street and under torture in the prisons. Ladies were abducted from the streets, raped, killed, mutilated. Their organs were stolen and sold in the black market. However, our people in Syria, like our people in Bangladesh, determined to score their rights. I call upon brothers and sisters from this place to launch a campaign for Bangladesh, as for Syria, as for any part of the world under dictatorship. And I am an optimist for the future of Bangladesh. And as I am optimist about the future of Syria, regardless to any other aspects. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala save our Maulana Dilwar Hussein Saidi and our people in Bangladesh and our people in Syria And please, don't be weak. Be steadfast and ask for your rights. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Our next speaker is the President of the Muslim Association of Britain, Dr. Omar Al-Hamdoun.
الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن Respected elders, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Firstly, I'd like to thank the Bangladeshi Crisis Group for organizing this program and for inviting us all here to really start to think and to reflect and to work towards what's happening in Bangladesh as part of what's happening throughout the world. Firstly, our thoughts and our dua are with those who have been killed, those who have been suffered, those who have been widowed, orphaned as a result of this brutal campaign. We are here, as you can see, and as Brother Abdullah mentioned, that we are here as united. We're united as the Prophet ﷺ told us, that مَثَلُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ في توادهم ومثل المؤمنين في توادهم كمثل الجسد الواحد إذا اشتكى منه عضو تداعى إليه سائر الجسد بالسهر والحمى. The example of the Muslims in their love and affection and mercy for one another is like that of one body. When one part of it is afflicted by any harm, the whole of the body comes to feel that pain and suffering. And today, we are here to say that we stand for justice. And one thing that we have learned from the past, and as we can see in front of our eyes today in this year, 2011, is that no matter how long a person, a dictator, remains as a dictator, there will come a time when he will be running away from his people like rats run away from when they feel fear. This has happened, as you can see, in places like Tunisia and Egypt and Libya, and it's an ongoing struggle which is not restricted to the Arabs, and we hope it isn't restricted to the Arabs. As we are seeing, inshallah, in Bangladesh will be the beginning of the Asian Spring. We're also here because this kind of gathering also upsets, or this kind of gathering upsets the people who are really behind what's happening in Bangladesh. And that is those people who are in the US administration. The time that they announced the war on terror, they didn't really mean war on terror. They meant war on anybody who talks about Islam, wants Islam as a way of life, wants Islam to rule for them. Those people who want to come together as a Muslim ummah, as a one nation, that is the war on terror, which is led by the US government. And why we are here today, inshallah, to give two messages. One message is to the tyrants, and that is, like I mentioned, no matter how long oppression lasts, there will come a time when the tyrants will topple. But we are required two things, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَجَعَلْنَاهُمْ أَئِمَّةً يَهْدُونَ بِأَمْرِنَا لَمَّا صَبَرُوا وَكَانُوا بِآيَاتِنَا يُوقِنُونَ. We made them the leaders when they had the sabr and they had the yaqeen. And today, it is the language that the people speak, the language of the masses. Nobody would have pictured people like Ibn Abidin or Mubarak or Gaddafi going at any time, or indeed Saddam before him. But we are seeing it happening in front of our eyes. So we as a people, we have to send that message that we are together and we will not stand for any oppression or tyranny. And the second message, which we are here, inshallah, is also to send to the UK government, which we are a part of. We are living here in Britain. We are citizens or subjects of the United Kingdom. We have a right to speak out. And we have the right to lobby the coalition government, to lobby the MPs, the councillors, so that they do not act as they are acting now, double-faced and two-sided, where they are supporting the dictators when it comes to what they call war on terror. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as he mentioned, وَالْعَاقِبَةُ لِلْمُتَّقِينَ وَجَزَاكُمُ اللَّهُ خَيْرًا.
Jazakallah khair, Dr. Omar. Our next speaker is Brother Hassan Mu'inuddin, the Vice President of Da'wat al-Islam.